make this quick. 4 words that Meghan Markle uttered before entering an Australian children's hospital for the grossest royal stunt I have ever seen.
This is not a royal tour. 2 private citizens pretending they're the king and queen of California. It is just bizarre.
This is not right. Using children at death's door to try to rehabilitate 2 bullies, the image of 2 bullies, that is absolutely sickening.
I make the most of these shows family friendly, but this time I'm going to say it. F you, Meghan and Harry. The sausages. F you and whatever you were pretending and posing here. I've seen you doing some shit, but nothing quite like
This child is clearly looking around at the cameras as they are flashing. If he had any common sense, referring to Harry, he would see the child was done and tell the parent to get them out of there. How pathetic they are. This makes me mad. Look at that.
A 4-year-old named Lily was waiting for chemotherapy that morning. She had no idea her hospital ward was about to turn into something completely different. Nurses suddenly shifted focus, cameras appeared, and a carefully timed visit began unfolding inside the same Melbourne hospital once visited by Princess Diana back in 1985. And yes, the detail that caught everyone's attention?
Catherine would arrive quietly, sit on the floor with the children at their level, and the published photos would show her engaging with them and not the other way around. The children were not arranged for Catherine. Catherine went to the children, and that distinction tells you everything about the difference between service and spectacle.
The Cartier watch many royal watchers link directly to Diana herself. This happened at the Royal Children's Hospital on April 14, 2026. But this wasn't some quiet, low-key moment. It lasted about 90 minutes. Structured, documented, and tightly scheduled before moving on to the next stop of a 4-day tour. And sure, you could say, at least she showed up, but that's where things get uncomfortable, because what does showing up actually mean in a place like that? We've seen very different approaches before. Footage of Diana in the 80s, raw, unfiltered, or Catherine, Princess of Wales, spending long stretches in hospices with no cameras chasing every second. So when cameras are this present, this organized, this central, you have to ask the question, was this about the patients, or was it about the moment being captured? Lily, an 8-year-old with spinal muscular atrophy, teenagers fighting leukemia. These are real people in brutal situations. And when a visit starts to feel structured around optics instead of them, that's when it stops being simple compassion and starts raising real questions.
My source, who works within the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, has revealed that when Meghan arrived, she said, "Let's make this quick." And as my source told me, such a humanitarian, not then the acting started. Acting of her pretending to care.
Now picture that same morning, but from inside the hospital itself. Photographers were already in position before Meghan Markle even walked through the doors, patient consents handled in advance, the route planned ahead, adolescent oncology, then the therapeutic garden, then rehabilitation. Step by step, it's not like a schedule. And that's the part that raises eyebrows, because when every movement is mapped out like that, it doesn't feel spontaneous, it feels structured. The visit lasted around 90 minutes and multiple outlets reported on how it unfolded. GB News, LBC, Hello Magazine, they all described a moment that looked polished, controlled, and very deliberate. According to reports, the Duchess moved through each space with precision. Pause, connect, hold the moment, then move on. Now let's be clear, the patients are real. The hospital is real. The situations these families are facing, very real. That's not in question. What people are questioning is everything around those moments. The camera angles, the styling, the outfit, Karen G navy dress, Dior pumps, Cartier jewelry. In isolation, none of that is shocking. But inside a children's cancer ward, it starts to feel curated. And here's where the comparison hits. When Catherine, Princess of Wales, visits a ward, the focus usually lands on the kids.
Lining children up like that, who are very, very sick in a hospital, is revolting. But look at this. The children know. They always know. These kids don't want a bar of Meghan Markle. And can you blame them? after their parents allowed them to be put on display like that.
When Princess Diana sat with HIV patients in the early 90s, the images that lasted weren't about appearance. They captured something raw, something human. So when photos from Melbourne come out looking highly polished, almost editorial, you have to stop and ask, is this just how modern coverage works now? Or is something else shaping how these moments are presented? The hospital became the setting. The visit became the moment. And one detail quietly tied everything together, the gold watch on her wrist. Because this wasn't just any location. Royal Children's Hospital Melbourne is the exact same place Princess Diana visited back in October 1985 with King Charles III. And that comparison? It's impossible to ignore. Diana didn't just pass through, she stayed, she sat with children for hours. And in one small but powerful gesture,
Children were arranged in common areas for the walkthrough, all of them neatly arranged as props.
she removed her gloves. A simple move, but intentional, making sick kids feel human, not untouchable. Those moments still exist today in BBC archives. Now fast forward 41 years, Meghan Markle walks through those same doors, and people immediately notice what she's wearing on her wrist, a Cartier watch, often linked, rightly or wrongly, to Diana. And that's where things get complicated, because the story behind that watch has been debated for years. According to Paul Burrell, after Diana's passing, Prince William initially chose the watch, while Prince Harry chose the sapphire ring. Later, the story goes, they swapped. William kept the ring, Harry ended up with the watch, and eventually it made its way to Meghan. But here's the catch. This version isn't fully confirmed. Even in Spare, there's no clear mention of that swap. And while the claim has been repeated publicly, it's never been officially confirmed or directly denied. What is clear?
What's happening with Harry and Meghan? You know what's happening. They've got their PR team, last year or so no doubt, on the phone, desperately phoning places, organisations, people in Australia saying, please can Harry and Meghan come and visit you for photo ops? Australians go, yeah, okay then. So in other words, there's all this effort going into creating something that is totally false.
Meghan has been wearing that watch consistently since around 2020. So you're left with two possibilities, and neither one is simple. Either it genuinely is Diana's watch, or it's been widely presented that way for years without correction. And once you notice that detail right there in that specific hospital, the symbolism suddenly feels a lot heavier. And this is where the debate really explodes. Because no matter how you look at it, both interpretations raise uncomfortable questions. Wearing a watch linked to Princess Diana on a normal day, fine. But wearing it on a high-profile trip in Australia, inside the exact hospital Diana made famous for her hands-on compassion, that's when people start paying attention.
They pursued an appearance, just like Harry in Canada, pursued an appearance at a venue that has history with Queen Elizabeth II. That was intentional, that children's hospital, to force that royal proximity. I think there's something very sinister about using dying children and the homeless as props to try to salvage what's left of your brand. It's truly...
Because context changes everything. This wasn't a random stop. It was a scheduled visit with cameras present, moments captured, and images that spread fast. And once those images hit, people didn't just look at the visit, they looked at the details. And that watch? It's been part of the conversation for years. Since around 2020, Meghan Markle has been seen wearing it consistently. And every time it appears, the same speculation comes back. What does it represent? A tribute? A personal connection? Or something more strategic? Now here's where things escalated fast. Royal biographer Angela Levin reacted to the footage with a line that spread across outlets like Daily Mail and across the wider commentary space. She wrote, "She won't let her children be seen, but pushes ill children into daylight so she can have a picture taken of herself being so caring."
Who is the visit for? Is it for them or is it for the photographs? Because if it's for them, you do not need $30,000 on your body to hand someone a plate of frittata. You just need to show up.
That quote hit hard, and not everyone agreed with it, but it tapped into a bigger tension that's been building. Because on one side, there's a strong emphasis on privacy when it comes to Meghan and Harry's own children. Public appearances have been limited, controlled, and carefully released. On the other side, moments like this, inside a hospital, are photographed, shared, and widely circulated. And that contrast, that's what people are reacting to. Now, to be fair, hospitals require consent for any photography, especially involving patients.
Wheeled children out of their hospital rooms to be there, and then they put a rope around it that was only removed for pictures. But when they were not being pictured with Harry and Meghan Markle, their rope was there. I have never seen anything like that. I've been around. Even the Queen did not have ropes. People were just normally standing there. But no, Harry and Meghan demanded that the rope be put there so there would be a distance between the princess, because that's another thing that you don't know about. Meghan Markle demanded to be called Princess Meghan during the entire trip. Not even Duchess of Sussex, but Her Royal Highness Princess Meghan Markle.
These moments don't happen randomly, but even with consent in place, the optics still raise questions. Because once those images go public, those kids, those faces, those moments, they don't stay in that room anymore. They spread everywhere, and that's the part that's making people stop and think twice about what they're really looking at. Let's strip this down, because this is where people stop holding back. There's a growing argument that you can't strongly protect your own children's privacy while also appearing in highly publicized settings with other people's sick children in widely shared images. That contrast is what's making people uncomfortable, because one side is tightly controlled, rare appearances, carefully released photos, limited access. The other side, moments like this inside a hospital, captured, distributed, and seen by millions. And once those images are out there, they don't come back. Now, to be fair, medical settings require consent. These visits don't just happen randomly. There are protocols, approvals, and families involved in those decisions.
So nothing screams I'm a humanitarian and I care about children by rocking up to a children's hospital and treating it like Studio 54. Perch and twerch, are you listening? Of course you are, you pathetic little numpties. You disgust me. You show up at a children's hospital and line up the children that are there because they are ill in front of photographers. You used their pain, their illnesses, and their exhaustion in order to elevate and promote yourselves, just like you did at the fires in LA, just like you did at Uvalde, just like you've done at Invictus. The list goes on. I could sit here and say you're disgusting, vile, self-absorbed, self-entitled, and self-obsessed, but what would be the point? I could say read the room, but I'm not going to. Why? You couldn't read the room even if it came with bloody subtitle.
But even with that in place, critics argue the optics still feel uneven. And that's where the conversation gets sharper, because today's hospital visit wasn't an isolated moment. It was part of a wider 4-day schedule across Australia. Day 1 in Melbourne, hospital visit plus a women's support center. Day 2 in Canberra, appearance at Australian War Memorial, shifting the focus toward veterans.
Desperate for the positive headlines, just like the way she was crawling all over Ted Sarandos and his wife at the party, melting, holding their hands, dripping all over them in those photographs.
Day 3, community engagements, including outreach with local and Indigenous groups, along with a mental health-focused event and a keynote appearance. Then the final stretch in Sydney, where attention turns toward a high-end wellness experience. And that last part, that's where the tone shifts again. Reports suggest the retreat, linked to Meghan Markle, comes with premium pricing, with tickets reaching into the thousands. So when people step back and look at the full timeline, they don't just see individual visits, they see a sequence, moments that generate attention, followed by appearances that build credibility, ending with something that carries a commercial angle. Now, is that intentional strategy? Or just how modern public figures operate when charity, media, and business all overlap? That's the real question. Because once you connect all the dots, the hospital stop, the public coverage, the later events, it becomes less about one visit.
The Duke and Duchess of Privacy are not going to get a welcome reception here this week after they disrespected this country, disrespected the Queen, and the entire royal family. We don't want you here, Meghan, and we don't want you here, Harry. because Australia welcomed the newly married Duke and Duchess with open arms 8 years ago. And you'll recall this was the trip that they announced they were pregnant with their first child. Thousands lined the streets to greet them. They were treated like rock stars. We adored them, and they shoved it back in our faces because they hated the trip and then left the royal family. So don't expect a welcome reception this week. As I said, this is another phony royal tour.
And more about the bigger picture those moments are part of. And this is where the whole thing starts to connect. Because when a high-profile hospital visit happens early in the week, and by the weekend, there are premium-priced wellness tickets being promoted in the same country, people don't automatically see those as separate events anymore. They see a sequence. One moment creates headlines. The next benefits from the attention. That doesn't automatically mean intent, but it does raise questions about how these appearances function in the bigger picture. Because this kind of structure isn't new. Public figures have been doing media tours tied to appearances, speaking events, and paid experiences for years. What's different here is the setting that kicked it off. A children's hospital, and that's why the reaction feels stronger.
Underneath that apron was a Karen Gee navy dress worth at $1,250 Australian dollars. On her feet, Diorescence pumps in black leather. On her wrist, Princess Diana's Cartier Tank Francais watch, a piece valued conservatively in the range of $20,000 to $30,000. And she added a Cartier lover bracelet and a pair of real fine studio puffy heart earrings in yellow gold at $780. So by any reasonable estimate, she walked into a shelter for women who have nothing, wearing north of $30,000 in jewelry and designer clothes.
Now, to keep this grounded, some details are confirmed, others are reported. The full financial breakdown of the trip hasn't been publicly released. But the schedule, public, the events, listed, the pricing tied to the Sydney wellness experience, widely reported. So you don't have to guess, you can literally line up the timeline yourself. And here's where it really shifts. It's not just outside commentators reacting. Australian media outlets started weighing in too. Herald Sun described the visit as a faux royal tour aimed at supporting brand Sussex. That's not a fringe take. That's a mainstream paper in the country where this is happening.
No one wants to spend her best life weekend with Meghan Markle because they know she's a grifter. It's $3,100 for a VIP ticket, $2,700 for a regular ticket. If you pay for the VIP experience, she will give you a group photo. All the VIPs can spend several $100s and you just get a group. You don't even get a one-on-one.
Then the Sydney Morning Herald went even further, questioning whether the trip blurred the line between public engagement and promotion. And once that narrative hit locally, the public response followed. A petition opposing taxpayer-funded security for the visit reportedly gathered tens of thousands of signatures in the same week these images were circulating. That's not just noise, that's a visible reaction. So now the conversation isn't just about one hospital visit anymore, it's about how the entire trip is being perceived by media, by locals, and by the audience watching it unfold in real time.
It's not a tour. This is a business trip of two private citizens who are exploiting their royal titles, and there have been and have.
Now this is where the commentary really turned sharp, because it wasn't just one outlet, it was a wave of reactions. The Spectator ran a piece describing the visit as a pathetic cry for public love. Harsh, but it spread fast. Royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams also weighed in, calling the whole situation very dubious. And then came the line that really stuck. Reported by Emily Andrews in Woman and Home, a palace insider allegedly said, "Meghan is basically Fergie now." That comparison, that's the one people can't ignore. Because Sarah Ferguson, Fergie, has long been seen as the example of someone who kept the royal title while building commercial ventures outside the official structure. So when that name gets brought into the conversation, it signals something specific. Not Diana.
Netflix's soap opera has rolled into town. Mr. and Mrs. Grifter are here. And for what purpose? Because the last time they came, which was back in 2018, right, they said that this was the catalyst. They said it was the catalyst for leaving the royal family. And apparently, Meghan, quote, hated every single minute of that trip. So here they are, 8 years later, they've returned back to Australia for goodness knows what reason. And all I can put it down to be honest, is that they need money. They need a lot more money. I mean, Harry's just being sued by the charity he co-founded. Let's be honest, Meghan hasn't sold enough jams or dog biscuits over the last 12 months, and everything that these two have touched has been a complete failure. So the grifters are here for money. That's all I can put it down to.
Not the humanitarian image, but a different kind of legacy. Now, is that fair? That's up for debate. But the fact that it's being said by commentators, by media, even reportedly by insiders, that's what's driving the narrative right now. And here's where expectations come into play. The 2018 Australia tour drew massive crowds and global attention. That set a certain standard. So when a return visit feels more controlled, more contained, more selective, it naturally invites comparison. Some see it as a shift, others see it as evolution. Either way, the contrast is being noticed.
Look at this, a former politician here in Sydney has just revealed that when Harry toured an upgraded war memorial on that trip, there were rumours that she had asked if she would be getting an appearance fee. That's according to David Elliott. So a veteran's wife asking for an appearance fee?
It's sick, but it's absolutely how this woman behaves.
And then we circle back to the detail that keeps pulling everything together, the watch. Because once you connect that to Princess Diana, the comparison becomes unavoidable, not because it's identical, but because it invites people to measure one against the other. And that's where things get complicated. Because Diana's visits, especially to places like the Melbourne Children's Hospital, weren't just single appearances. They built a reputation over time through repeated, less structured interactions. So when people look at today's visit, they're not just seeing what happened. They're comparing it, directly or indirectly, to a legacy that still carries weight decades later. This is where the comparison really slows things down, because it matters.
Duke and Duchess of Sussex have been accused of treating their upcoming trip to Australia like an ATM. That's a cash machine.
Princess Diana didn't build her reputation on one visit, or even a handful. It was years, decades, a pattern people could recognize over time. Some of those visits weren't even heavily publicized, some weren't front-page moments. She would sit quietly for long stretches next to patients, including those in the most difficult conditions. And in 1991, during the height of fear around HIV, she removed her gloves. That wasn't symbolic for cameras alone. It challenged how people were treating patients at the time. Now, was there risk? Socially, yes. Public perception mattered back then in a different way. And that moment stuck because it felt personal, not staged. That's why it became part of her legacy. Now pause and look at the contrast people are drawing today. Same type of setting, same kind of patients, decades apart, but the structure feels different. A scheduled visit, media present, a defined time frame, a broader tour happening around it, and yes, details like wardrobe, accessories and imagery becoming part of the conversation.
A spectacle and a shame. Even the great Elizabeth II and glorious Diana met the sick children at their bedside. I cannot think of another celebrity on earth who would demand the sick children to be lined up for an official meeting opportunity. Princess Diana would be appalled.
So when Meghan Markle walks into a hospital like Royal Children's Hospital Melbourne wearing a watch often linked to Diana, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It invites comparison. Not because the situations are identical, but because the symbolism is strong. And once you layer in everything else, the multi-day schedule, the public appearances, the reported high-end event at the end of the week, people start connecting those dots, rightly or wrongly. So the real question isn't, are these two visits the same? They're not. The real question is, what do people expect when they see those visual parallels? Because legacy isn't just about what you wear or where you go. It's about how consistently those actions are perceived over time. And right now, that's exactly what people are debating, whether this moment aligns with that legacy or simply echoes parts of it in a very different context. By 4 o'clock, by 4 p.m. Melbourne time, it was over. Meghan Markle had left. The photographers packed up, the media cycle moved on to the next headline, and inside Royal Children's Hospital Melbourne, everything snapped back to reality. Nurses went back to work, back to holding hands during chemo, back to managing long-term treatments, back to patients whose lives don't run on schedules or media windows. That contrast, it's hard to ignore.
They are using us as a cash machine. This is just a cash grab. They want to bring whatever it is that they bring. And look at it, they are no longer royal adjacent. They are not qualified psychologists. And as far as we can see, they aren't even the philanthropists they attest to be, because we haven't seen any donation.
Because whatever people think about the visit, those medical teams saw the entire process from start to finish. And you're right about one thing. They're not going to speak publicly about it. Hospital policy, professional risk, NDAs, that silence is built into the system. But here's the part that's driving the conversation. You don't actually need insider quotes to understand why this moment is being debated. People are reacting to what they can see. A tightly timed visit, a strong media presence, images that spread instantly, and a broader tour continuing right after, then layer in everything else. The reporting from outlets like Herald Sun, the commentary comparisons, the petition drawing tens of thousands of signatures in the same week. And suddenly this isn't just about one hospital stop anymore. It becomes a bigger question about perception. Now, some viewers see this as a positive visit that brought attention to important causes. Others see something more structured, more controlled, more aligned with media strategy. Both reactions exist. But here's where your argument lands strongest, not in declaring motive, but in pointing out the contrast. Because on one side, there are deeply private family boundaries. On the other, there are highly visible moments involving vulnerable people that quickly become global content. And that tension, that's what people are responding to. So whether someone sees compassion, strategy, or a mix of both, one thing is clear. This wasn't a moment that passed quietly. It was seen, it was shared, and it left people asking questions that aren't going away anytime soon.
Why are children who should be resting in their beds, children with compromised immune systems, children in active treatment, being brought out to common areas so that two people with a camera crew can walk through and collect content?
And here's the bigger picture. This isn't finished. Australia has already reacted, and the rest of this tour is still unfolding. Day 2, Day 3, and then the weekend event. It's all coming up, and every step is going to be seen, documented, and picked apart in real time. So this isn't just about one visit anymore, it's about what happens next, and how the full sequence comes together. I'll be tracking every stop right here as it unfolds, because once you start connecting these moments, the story gets a lot bigger than a single headline. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit subscribe, because this one's still developing. The watch, linked to Princess Diana, the hospital, the same one tied to her legacy. But the real debate people are having right now, whether what we're seeing today lives up to that legacy or something very different.